Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over the most recent patch for Borderlands 3, which is on January 16th. Now, this patch is pretty important. There's not a ton in it, but they did gut one of the strongest items in the game. So first off, take down the Madly 1 Black Site and Farming Frenzy. This week starts the Take Down the Madly 1 Black Site event from when the hotfix goes live until 8:59 a.m. PT on January 30th. So the end of the month, Takedown at the Madly 1 Black Site will be scaled to the number of players in the lobby. So basically how this worked before is Madly 1 Black Site was always set to being scaled to if there was 4 people. Now it's just going to scale to the amount of people in it. So if you're trying to solo the Madly 1 Black Site on Mayhem 4 now, it's going to pretty much be the same as doing anything else in the game. That's to say it's going to be really easy for the most part, especially if you're using any of the top builds. It's going to be an absolute face roll. So if you want a lot of god rolled or better rolled Madly 1 takedown items, farm it this month. Get spend the time to farm it all this month. Get it done this month so you don't have to farm it anymore past that. That's pretty much all I guess they have to say about that. In addition, during the Farming Frenzy mini event will be running for the same duration. We're making a few other changes. Rare spawn enemies will also show up more often, and we're temporarily boosting the Anointed and Legendary drop rates for the next 2 weeks. Every boss in the game has boosted drop rates, including the takedown to Madly 1 Black Site bosses. May these 2 weeks be challenging, rewarding, and full of loot. Don't know why they'd be challenging when you're nerfing the challenge. So basically, this event just makes all the bosses in the game have higher Anointed drop chances, higher Legendary drop chances, and then the rare enemies that only have a chance to spawn, those spawn more but aren't guaranteed. I'm not sure if they're guaranteed just going off this. So go farm everything this week, especially the Madly 1 takedown. I would focus on the Madly 1 takedown because now it's much easier for a month. These 2 weeks or however long that Farming Frenzy is going will make the items have a lot higher chance to drop the legendaries and then have a higher chance to be anointed. So I would go get that because the Madly 1 takedown is by far the most grindy farm in the game. You have to do the entire thing just for one chance at loot from the last boss. So I'd recommend going to do that. You're probably going to get your items somewhat quickly, the ones you want at least. Bug fixes: address or report a concern with item card and hotfixes sometimes not showing information correctly. Address or report a concern that Judge Hightower was sometimes not dropping items from his dedicated loot pool. I went and tested this. His dedicated loot pool that's in the files, he's still not dropping. A weapon I went over a long time ago, it's an SMG that's pretty much, when you reload it, throws out Roland's turret. From Borderlands 1, and this still doesn't drop, so I don't know if this just is never going to be in the game or something. It's probably just never going to be in the game. Judge Hightower, I guess, just drops other stuff. He doesn't have his own specific drops, I don't think, or any new items. It's just a balance of Fabricator, Freddy, pretty much all the DLC bosses to provide a greater challenge, so they're a bit harder. They were really easy, but I don't think it's really a number thing. They're probably not adding any new abilities to them, so it's probably just them adding more damage or more health, which isn't really going to make any of them that much harder. Developer note: we noticed that the bosses in the Hands of Jackpot weren't providing players with a satisfying challenge. We'll be monitoring these bosses to make adjustments as needed in the future. I don't really think I've seen anybody say anything about them being super easy or not fun because they're easier. I think it is a nice change of pace that pretty much only one boss in the DLC had immunity phases, if I can remember correctly. Just the last boss. I don't think any of the other ones have any immunity phases. These are probably much more liked by the community overall than most of the other big endgame bosses of just the vanilla game. The Iron Cannon, and this is the gutted weapon. The Iron Cannon now has a 5-second reload and consumes at least 6 ammo per shot. I think it's 7 for the ×2. So instead of just reducing the damage on this thing, which is what was needed, they just made a 5-second reload time. Realize how fast 5-second base reload time is. That's ridiculous. And consumes at least 6 ammo per shot. That's a few shots per magazine with an incredibly long reload. The only thing this is going to be used for now is pretty much boss fights because it has high single target damage. And only a couple people are going to be able to use this. If you can't regen ammo, if you can't regen a lot of ammo baseline, especially if you don't have like the terrified items that have really good regen on them, which aren't obtainable anymore, this thing's almost useless to you, except maybe in boss fights. Like, you're going to go through ammo so quickly if you can't regen a lot of ammo. If you're not someone like Moe's or someone that just has really high ammo regen, you're kind of screwed. And they double nerf this again, which is how they've gutted items in the past. Pretty much they just don't want people using this, is what a fix like this is. They could have just added a 5-second reload and it would have been weaker. Not everybody's using this for everything. There's so many really good builds still coming out that aren't using an ion cannon whatsoever, that like not everyone is using it. It's not needed in every endgame build. So I don't understand why they double nerfed it. A 5-second reload probably would have done it. Kitsubik 6 ammo is a lot worse, but still would have done it. And they could have legitimately just been like, oh, this is doing too much damage, which is the only thing that's strong on the weapon is the incredible amount of base damage. It could have been like, oh, now the damage is reduced by 20%. And if we need to adjust it slightly in the future, we could do that. 20% would have been fine. Not everyone's using it right now. It probably would have taken it slightly out of some builds, but it still wouldn't have been fine, still would have been usable, wouldn't have been gutted. This makes it actually unusable for a lot of builds. Instead of just making it do less damage so a lot of builds could still use it, they completely nerfed it twice, gutted it, so now only a few builds can actually effectively use this thing. It's a really bad way to go about nerfing items. Like, none of this weapon... The good things about this weapon, incredibly high base damage. That's pretty much the main thing, and that it's really accurate. The reload speed was not good on it. The time to shoot this is not good on it. The amount of ammo usage is decent for a rocket launcher, but if you can't regen ammo a ton, like I said, it's still not very good on it. Like, the base damage is pretty much the good thing about the weapon, and they decided to nerf all the stuff that's already weak on the item and just absolutely gut those parts of it. So now it's just like, okay, certain builds are going to use this to like still one-shot bosses. Like I have a Zane build that pretty much one-shots a lot of bosses without immunities. I have a Moe's build that does that as well. Those are still going to be good, but that's pretty much it. If you can't regen ammo, it's not good for anything but single target fights. I really don't understand this. It's a really bad way to go about nerfing items, and they gutted another item, which everyone was already making like the jokes, the memes that this thing is gonna be nerfed in the future and destroyed, and it kind of was. Again, without anything to do, like there's so many builds that absolutely wreck everything possible in the game. It doesn't make sense to nerf items even slightly as much as this did. The Anointed Cannon is a strong weapon, and we don't want to change that. You did. But it's a little overperforming. We've increased the reload time and made it consume more ammo, but left its damage unchanged to still provide a strong burst of damage. Really doesn't make sense how they nerfed this. It was honestly one, if they just nerfed the base damage, like I said, it would have been much better because it still would have been usable. It still would have actually been usable just playing the game. Like if someone's just playing the game, they're not trying to do a crazy farm, they're not trying to mob as quickly as humanly possible, maybe they're just questing or doing something, it still would have been good for that. Now it's not good for that. Now it's not good for mobbing really, unless, like I said, you could have crazy regen. You're going to go through your ammo, and your entirety of your rocket launcher ammo is going to be used in a few shots of this thing. And then you're done. It doesn't have a massive splash radius. It's not a rocket that shoots out a bunch of other rockets to go splash and hit everything. So it's pretty much used for one thing now. Added collisions to prevent the gunner from sometimes becoming stuck in Meridian. I don't know what that name is. Added collisions to prevent players from sometimes escaping the map in various locations. Increase the radius of new use station. None of these are really anything. So here's some positive changes. They're increasing or buffing everyone but Amara's Anointeds, which is good. They're actually trying to bring the other things up to Amara's Anointeds. It took them this long, but it is good. While Auto Bear is active, it deals 75% up from 20% bonus ancillary damage. I think this is just on weapons, which still isn't good compared to a lot of other things, but it's a good Anointed. It's buffed, so people don't have a lot of Anointeds and they have this. That's a really big buff. It's still not going to be anywhere close to the top one. After exiting Iron Bear, the next two magazines will have 125% bonus ancillary damage from 40. The issues with these is their incendiary damage. Yes, Mo's has a lot of things to synergize with this, but there's a lot of other stuff that have this amount, like 125%, specifically 125%, after an active skill was used, but with just all damage. Only having incendiary damage on these two still makes them pretty weak, but it's still a good nerf nonetheless. This one's really good. This is Mo's strongest after Xing. Iron Bear gain 160%, up from 120% increased splash damage for 18 seconds. This is really good. This is her strongest Anointed for the most part, especially on most of her builds that are actually like still really good right now. So this is really good, especially if you have these Anointeds on weapons, the weapons you want, the rocket launches you want. This is a really big buff. 40% damage increase is definitely a really big buff. When entering and Xing Iron Bear, Nova damage increased. They should probably put a number to this. I have no idea what this is going to be. It's still not going to be useful because almost nothing in the game that has anything to do with Novas has been used by pretty much anyone for anything, because they're all really honestly useless. They'd have to do like one shot everything in the area damage to be useful. Then we have Zane. While Barry's active, accuracy is increased by 60% and critical hit damage increased by 70%, up from 30. This is good. This one will actually be usable now. The accuracy no one cares about, but damage from 70% up from 30 is a really big damage increase and critical hit. It'll probably be much better on bosses because Zane can't guarantee crits like something like Flat can. So bosses with bigger crit spots will probably be good, and that's probably what that'll be used for. Is more of a burst, single target killing item. Now this one's really good. When your drone is active, gain 100% from 50% as bonus as cryo damage. And this is super, super good. This is going to be one of the strongest Anointeds in the game because this is bonus cryo, which is really good. It's synergized with other stuff from Zane, but you can have this drone up at certain builds. Majority, pretty much 100% of the time you're fighting, which is just 100% increase with cryo damage. This is one of the strong. This was already a good Anointed that people want to use before. This is one of the strongest Anointeds in the game now. It's super, super strong. You don't have an Anointed over that, but this one gives, what's really good about this one is it gives the consistency. You know when you're getting this damage, it's always there when your drone is up. Super consistent all the time. Very good for mobbing, very good for the raid, good for bosses as well. There's better ones for bosses, but still good for bosses just because it's that consistent damage, and it's cryo damage, which pretty much I think does the same to everything. If I'm not mistaken. No, I don't think that's actually right. I know it has a bonus against something, but it's very good. When you're mobbing against stuff, you could freeze them a lot because this is bonus. This isn't, extra, it's bonus. So you're doing cryo. So if you're not using a cryo weapon, it'll now do a bunch of cryo damage, which is very good. Very good change, very strong Anointed. Flak, when Xing fade away, Nova damage increased. Again, this would have to do like one shot kill everything in the radius to be useful. It's a Nova. No one uses them. After using Rack Attack, gain 50% from 25% critical hit damage for a short time. I don't know if this is going to be useful because there's this one that decreases your crit, but then there's one that just makes a target take 100% increased damage, which is still going to be better. So I don't know how this works or how the game calculates this, because depending on how the game calculates this, it could be like the same or more of a damage increase. But even if it was slightly higher than the target takes 100% increased damage, you're still not going to want to use it over that, because if you don't crit, except for bosses, I guess, if with fade away, but you can't actually do that. Don't know why I said that. You can't actually do that with Rack Attack. So if you miss a crit, you're missing all the damage of this. So you'd still want to use the other one. This would have to go up quite a bit more. Like this would have to be more than the other Anointed that makes enemies take 100% increased damage for it to be useful, depending on how the game calculates it. I have no idea. I don't think anyone's probably done a lot of testing into this one because it wasn't very useful before. So that is the entirety of the patch notes. We're going to tell a little bit because, again, they don't seem to know how to nerf items. It's also a PvE game where tons of builds with tons of different items in the game can destroy everything easily. So I don't know why they're nerfing something that's strong in the first place. But anyways, subscribe if you want to see more Borderlands 3 content. Also going to be doing some content, some videos on some upcoming games and some other games. So if you want to check that out, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think about these patch notes. They're pretty good besides the ion cannon. Pretty much everything is a good change besides gutting the ion cannon. And thanks for watching.